There are still many questions we have about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. One of the biggest questions, though, has to do with Princess Zelda and her role. What are they setting up here? What are they suggesting? With some of the trailers, we see Zelda falling down a hole. Does she die? Or is she simply trapped, and this is how they explain how Zelda won't be involved in this story? Or could it be possible that Zelda will finally have a more increased role in this story? Could she perhaps even be playable? And if not that, could she perhaps be the lady that we see holding Link's hand in the latest trailer? Could she perhaps be ascending to a Goddess Hylia-like status? There are a few different possibilities here, and there's an uncertainty as to what direction the Zelda team and Nintendo may be headed in. So what's going on? Well, that's what we're talking about today.
Listen!
Welcome everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we're talking about Zelda's role in Tears of the Kingdom. Now this is meant to be the beginning of a three-part series involving the three different major players for the story of Tears of the Kingdom. You have Zelda, you have Link, and seemingly we have a resurrected Ganondorf. And with there now being three major characters to focus on here instead of just the two, Link and Zelda in Breath of the Wild, I think they're going to be bringing back the storyline of the Triforce pieces. Wisdom for Zelda, Courage for Link, and Power for Ganon. Which leads me to this first element of Zelda's role in this game. And it's about the setup of this Triforce story I think there will be. So, in Breath of the Wild, when we see the flashbacks, Zelda prays at these three different springs representing wisdom, courage, and power in an effort to establish some sort of connection to her long lineage of goddess powers. But at first nothing happens, until Link falls in battle, and then for the next 100 years she uses her newfound goddess powers to hold back Calamity Ganon while Link is restored. Then once Link has returned and fights Ganon, she comes out and helps right at the end, and the Triforce, which is gone and vacant throughout the entire story of Breath of the Wild, unlike other Zelda games, it comes out and we see the whole thing, and it leads to this grand explosion where Calamity Ganon is defeated. So my theory is that Zelda actually used the power of the Triforce to make a wish, as has been done in previous Zelda games, to defeat Calamity Ganon, and this is related to her dwindled powers. So what I'm getting at here is that I believe Zelda actually acquired, unknowingly, the three different Triforce pieces at the three different springs, and that's why she had the entire Triforce. But once she also unknowingly made the wish upon the Triforce to defeat Calamity Ganon, those powers, those pieces broke up and went elsewhere as they typically do, hence why her powers have dwindled. Now, they've dwindled, implying that there may still be something there. I still think Zelda will have some level of a goddess connection, have some level of power and ability, but the bulk of that power was the Triforce, and that Triforce I now think will be housed in the Sacred Realm as it usually has been. The Sacred Realm is said to house the Triforce. But what's interesting here is that we've seen the Sacred Realm depicted as a golden land, perhaps in the skies or a heavenly-like environment, which is not too different from what we're seeing of the Sky Islands in Tears of the Kingdom. They are depicted with a golden color, they have these torii gates that suggest some sort of heavenly or sacred-like aura to them. It may be the case that the Triforce pieces are hidden here now, they've been scattered about. And a big piece to this story may be about Link, Zelda, and Ganon acquiring their individual Triforce pieces, including Wisdom for Princess Zelda. With this quest for potentially the Triforce of Wisdom in mind, let's now tackle one of the big questions. Does Zelda die or survive in the opening sequence of the game? Now, we assume that when Link and Zelda are exploring the underground and they meet up with what appears to be a resurrecting Ganondorf, that's the opening of the game. But from the footage they've shown us, we've seen Zelda fall down, and Link reaches out to save her, but we don't see the outcome of that attempt to save her. We do, however, see some footage showing the green hand grabbing Link, potentially saving him. However, we do not know if Zelda is saved. And many have speculated that this might be their way of explaining why Zelda isn't around for the events of Tears of the Kingdom, because the assumption is this is a single player game and you're just going to play as Link as we always have, and that's just it. She's just going to be someone you save at the end, or possibly because there's been a lot of speculation and suggestions that this is the darkest Zelda yet, or at least something comparable to Majora's Mask, that they're just going to have Zelda die, and with Zelda dying, the Princess of the Kingdom dying, that's why it's called Tears of the Kingdom. But in all honesty, I strongly doubt they are going to kill off Zelda. And if they do, somehow at the end she's going to be alive again, or there's going to be something done to give us a bit of a feel-good story when it comes to Princess Zelda. But I also think we have actual proof that she isn't dead. What I actually think happens, I think she somehow is saved. Either A, she falls down the hole and maybe she has her own paraglider, or something else happens that allows her to survive the fall, or this whole situation regarding her falling and Link reaching and we're not sure if she gets saved or not is just a fake out. She actually is saved, Link grabs her, the green hand grabs him, and they're all saved together and they escape to the skies. That's what I'm personally thinking may be happening right now, and let me explain why. In the recent trailer, we have two different voice lines from Zelda.
But Link, I am not sure you'll be able to stop him.
This line seems to be very clearly referring to the resurrected Ganon, and that would mean that Zelda saw the efforts of Ganon, meaning she survived that initial outcome. And it isn't like her voice is in some sort of desperation, neither is the second line.
Please, lend him your power.
Please lend him your power. It's a little bit more calm. This isn't like when she's falling down and she's screaming to please lend him your power. Now, it's possible she was thinking this in her mind and telepathically the message was sent to the green hand and the hand saved him, but not Zelda. But because of the first line, how it suggests that she saw this whole attack and she has an understanding of the threat here and she's not sure that Link could stop him, I think that pretty much confirms that she somehow survives what happens in the beginning. She doesn't die when she falls. But if she is to survive, what exactly are they doing with her? Is she going to simply be trapped somewhere and we have to save her like usual? Or is there something else different going on? Some have speculated that perhaps Zelda could be assuming the role of Goddess Hylia. Why would this be? Well, the lineage of Zelda is related to Goddess Hylia. In Skyward Sword, Zelda becomes Hylia. She is Hylia. She's a reincarnation of her, and the lineage of Zelda has the goddess powers. Zelda acquired the goddess powers in Breath of the Wild. They've dwindled at the end, but that doesn't mean they're gone altogether. And possibly in Tears of the Kingdom, they're going to be exploring this storyline as well, and expanding on her link to the goddess and those powers. Maybe because Ganon comes back to life, it brings up another need similar to when Link fell in battle, where the powers come forth. Maybe it's when she's at her most desperate moments that these powers come out, and maybe these powers lead to her taking on more of a goddess-like role. And this idea may hold some water, because we do see this shot where Link is holding hands with what appears to be a woman. And we're not sure who the woman is, but there's a possibility it is Princess Zelda herself. If you take a look at this imagery here, this is depicting Zelda in her goddess garments from Breath of the Wild. When you look at it side by side, it's not too different. Yes, there's differences, but the shape of the body, the form, it's similar. And we can't see any signs of long hair, suggesting maybe short hair. And what's interesting about this shot here is that they are intentionally hiding the face. Why would they? If this was an entirely new character, then there wouldn't really be a need to hide the face. But if they're still trying to keep it under wraps that Zelda has a more expanded role this time around, they're gonna hide that. They're not gonna show that off. So maybe somehow, either thanks to the powers of the Green Hand or her own goddess powers coming forth in her desperate need as she's falling down this hole and Ganon has resurrected, that she is saved and she finds herself somewhere in the Sky Islands alongside Link, and she takes on this more goddess-like role. It's also possible this person is simply someone else, maybe someone prominent, maybe Goddess Hylia herself, and that's why they're hiding her face, or maybe she's just wearing these clothes because that's the kind of clothes she would wear up there, and she was simply just saved like Link, but Link was incapacitated during battle. He was injured, and when he comes to, he has this moment where he holds Zelda's hand, and that's simply what that scene is showing, Link and Zelda reconnecting after Link was out for a little bit after his battle with Ganon, where he very clearly took great damage. And if this is a scenario where Zelda does survive, and she goes to the Sky Islands alongside Link, and she's not necessarily assuming the role of the goddess, she's simply wearing clothes that look somewhat heavenly because that's just what you wear up there, then maybe that leaves it open for Zelda having more of an increased role throughout the course of the game in terms of gameplay. Which brings me to the other big question people have been asking. Is Zelda playable? And obviously this is a theory. It's not confirmed yet, we don't know. But I do think there is some credence to this idea. However, I am also conflicted, and I will get to that. But let's first talk about what's being shown off that suggests that she might be playable. So firstly, in interviews, Eiji Aonuma has not denied this possibility of her being playable. When asked, this is what he said. A lot of people have been asking that, and that's why I want to ask you, why do people think that? And the interviewer from Kotaku responds, well, it seems that would make sense, because at the end of Breath of the Wild she was released, so now she can be a protagonist. Also, I think people have loved her for a long time. Aonuma responds, I see, but I cannot tell you. So Aonuma could have just straight up said, no, she's not playable, and they could have just killed off that idea right then and there, yet they haven't. Maybe because she is indeed playable in some way, or they simply just didn't want to give us anything on that department at all, and that was just pretty much what he was instructed to do. He's under NDA, he's not supposed to say, and it could be something as simple as that. Or it's also possible that in general she just may have more of an increased role of the story throughout the game. There may be a connection with Link, but she's not necessarily playable. These are all options. But there's other things suggesting that perhaps there could be something more going on here. So there was this survey that talked about Link and Zelda working together against these malevolent forces that threaten Hyrule. So that could perhaps be suggesting something there as well, but again, it also could just be tied to her having more of an active role in the story, not directly gameplay. But when we also consider that they've redesigned Zelda to have shorter hair, she has this more sporty outfit, it looks like she is geared for more of a journey and an adventure. They may have created this design because they do have something in mind for her to have more of a journey throughout Tears of the Kingdom, and it's not just about that opening sequence. But it goes beyond that, because we have seen this new art that they've provided recently that shows her holding a redesigned Sheikah Slate that looks like could have been fitted inside of her little side pouch that may have even been in the very first trailer. Why do we have this redesigned Sheikah Slate? I feel like there could be something to that. Which brings me to my last point about her possibly being playable here, and that has to do with this shot we see in the latest trailer. What I want to point out here is that this is an underground area that is different from all the other underground areas we've seen, so we're not sure if Link can technically go here yet, and we do see these metal boxes, not too different from the metal boxes we saw throughout Breath of the Wild that you can move with magnesis, and Zelda has a redesigned Sheikah Slate. So with Link, from what we can tell, having different kinds of powers from the Sheikah Slate thanks to the Green Hand, they may want to bring back the Sheikah Slate in some way. So similar to how Zelda could use the Sheikah Slate powers in Age of Calamity, perhaps that was a tease back at the time, they may have Zelda have certain portions of gameplay throughout our experience that are her exploring these underground areas using the Sheikah Slate and its abilities, including magnesis, perhaps hinted by those metal boxes. And I'll also point out, in this shot we see a lot of little mini souls. This part of the game could be less about combat and more about moving around, taking advantage of your resources, and collecting different things in small, quick spurts to perhaps open up channels underground to allow Link to explore. Because we have seen malice erupting from different places, perhaps limiting us from getting there, perhaps limiting us from getting to Hyrule Castle or Death Mountain. Maybe it's Zelda's job to go underground and help to clear certain things out to assist Link throughout his journey. I honestly think there's a legitimate possibility of this. But at the same time, I am concerned if this is the direction they go in, because I don't want there to be anything done that could impact that sense of open air exploration. And I feel that if we are not allowed to explore those underground areas with Link, that would be kind of limiting and would take away from the spirit of the game of being able to do things in your own way in the most open way possible. So I would find it to be a bit strange. However, I am also open to the idea that maybe this game will start off with a bit more linearity, and what this would mean is that maybe at first there are certain areas that Link can't get to, and he does work in tandem with Zelda for small spurts that you can switch in between however you choose, and as the game opens up, you do gain access to these other areas, ultimately still giving us that full open air experience, but with some linearity there, which, by the way, would support a better told narrative. It's easier to have a better story when a game's a bit linear. Now, Tears of the Kingdom can be very open, but with some linear aspects and elements, that may assist the storytelling. So I can envision a way where they could have Zelda playable that would still fit with the overall gameplay direction of Tears of the Kingdom in terms of open exploration. But I also can envision a scenario where Zelda isn't necessarily playable, but she does have an active role throughout the story. Maybe she's someone we can frequently visit, and there's different side quests involved with her and different plot beats, and she's important to the story. She's not just hidden away until the end of the game, and that would still be an improvement over previous games where she's just kind of the damsel in distress at the very end that we have to save. Either way, I think what's being suggested from everything we have so far is that she's not just in a hole somewhere, dead or waiting for us to save her. I think there's a little bit more to Zelda this time around, but we shall see. What do you guys think is happening with Zelda's role in Tears of the Kingdom? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.